The Voice on the Line. Chapter 1. A Call in the Night. The clock strikes 11, and Mia Collins steps into the dispatch center, the weight of another night shift settling on her shoulders. The fluorescent lights hum overhead, casting a sterile glow over the room. She nods to a few colleagues finishing up their shifts, their faces etched with the familiar weariness that comes with the job. Mia slides into her chair, the worn fabric molding to her form like an old friend. She logs into the system, the gentle whir of computers a constant backdrop to the night ahead. Her fingers hover over the keyboard, muscle memory kicking in as she prepares for the first call of her shift. The night starts slow, a trickle of emergencies that barely scratch the surface of what Mia knows the darkness can bring. A fender bender on Main Street, a false alarm at the high school, a noise complaint in the suburbs. She handles each with practiced efficiency, her voice a calm anchor in the storm of other people's crises. Between calls, silence creeps in, heavy and oppressive. Mia's gaze drifts to the photo taped to her monitor, a snapshot of happier times before the divorce, before the night shifts began to eat away at her personal life. She pushes the thoughts aside, refocusing on the screen in front of her. The clock ticks past midnight when the call comes in. At first it seems like any other, a woman's voice, trembling with fear. But as Mia listens, the hairs on the back of her neck begin to rise. 911, what's your emergency? Mia asks, her tone steady despite the growing unease in her gut. Help me, please, the woman whispers, her voice barely audible over the static on the line. I'm trapped. It's coming for me. Mia's fingers fly across the keyboard, ready to dispatch help. Ma'am, can you tell me your location? I don't know, the woman says, panic rising in her voice. The walls keep changing. There are no windows. I can hear it scratching, trying to get in. Mia frowns, her brow furrowing as she tries to make sense of the woman's words. What's your name? Can you describe what you see around you? Jane, the woman replies, her breath coming in short gasps. My name is Jane. The room? It's dark. There are symbols on the walls, glowing. They weren't there before. Oh God, the scratching is getting louder. I think it's coming. Mia's heart races, but she keeps her voice calm. Jane, I'm going to help you. Can you tell me the last thing you remember before finding yourself in this room? There's a long pause, filled only by Jane's ragged breathing. When she speaks again, her words send a chill down Mia's spine. I was walking home. It was night. 2 years ago. Mia's fingers freeze over the keyboard. 2 years? She shakes off the confusion, focusing on the task at hand. Jane, I'm going to trace your call. Just stay on the line with me, okay? She initiates the trace, expecting to see an address pop up on her screen. Instead, an error message flashes. Location not found. Mia tries again, her frustration mounting as the system fails to pinpoint Jane's location. Jane, can you see any landmarks, anything that might help us find you? No landmarks, Jane's voice crackles through the line. Just darkness and those symbols. Wait, I think I hear something else now. Voices. So many voices. Mia's unease grows. She glances at her colleagues, wondering if she should alert them to the strange call, but something holds her back. She can't shake the feeling that this is more than just a prank or a confused caller. Jane, I want you to take a deep breath. Can you do that for me? Mia says, trying to keep Jane grounded. There's a shaky inhale on the other end of the line. Okay, I'm trying, but it's getting colder in here. The voices are getting louder. They're saying my name. Mia's mind races, trying to piece together the bizarre information. She pulls up the dispatch center's database, searching for any recent missing persons reports that might match Jane's description. Nothing comes up. Jane, I'm going to get help to you, but I need you to stay calm and keep talking to me. Can you tell me more about these symbols you're seeing? As Jane begins to describe the strange, shifting glyphs on the walls, Mia's computer screen flickers. For a split second, she swears she sees one of the symbols Jane is describing flash across her monitor. She blinks and it's gone. They're moving, Jane whispers, her voice filled with awe and terror. The symbols are moving, changing. I think they're trying to tell me something. Mia's instincts scream that something is very wrong. She needs help, needs someone to verify that she's not losing her mind. With one hand still on her headset, she uses the other to send a message to Officer Jenkins, a colleague she trusts. "Jenkins, I've got a strange situation here. Caller trapped in an unknown location, possibly in danger. Can you check it out?" Jenkins' reply comes quickly. "On it. Give me details." Mia hesitates, unsure how to explain the inexplicable. She settles for sending the little concrete information she has, along with her gut feeling that this is more than a routine call. "Jane," Mia says, turning her attention back to the caller, "I've got an officer looking into your situation. Can you tell me more about what you're experiencing?" Jane's voice comes through weaker now, as if she's moving further away. "The room, it's changing. I'm not in the same place anymore. There are tunnels now, so many tunnels, I can hear water dripping, and the voices, they're getting closer." Mia's heart pounds. How could Jane's surroundings be changing so drastically? She tries the trace again, but the system still can't locate the call's origin. "Stay with me, Jane," Mia urges, fighting to keep the tremor out of her voice. "We're going to figure this out." But as the minutes tick by, Jane's descriptions become more fragmented, more impossible. One moment she's in a house with no doors, the next in an endless field of whispering grass. Through it all, the voices and the scratching persist, growing ever closer. Mia's colleagues begin to take notice of her agitation. A few cast concerned glances her way, but she waves them off. She can't explain why, but she knows she needs to see this through herself. Hours pass and still Jane's call continues. Mia's shift should have ended, but she refuses to leave her post. Her eyes burn from staring at the screen, her throat dry from talking. But she can't abandon Jane, not when the woman's terror is so palpable. As dawn approaches, Mia's desperation reaches a breaking point. She's exhausted every resource, every procedure she knows. Jane's situation seems hopeless, and Mia feels the weight of her failure pressing down on her. It's then that Jenkins returns, his face grim. He gestures for Mia to follow him, and with a quick reassurance to Jane, she steps away from her desk. "Mia," Jenkins says, his voice low, "I checked every location you gave me. There's nothing there. No trapped woman, no strange symbols. Are you sure about this call?" Mia opens her mouth to argue, but Jenkins holds up a hand. "There's more. I did some digging into cold cases, looking for anything that might match your Jane's description." He hands Mia a file, his expression unreadable. 2 years ago, a woman named Jane Doe went missing. They never found her. But they did find this. Jenkins pulls out his phone and plays a recording. Mia's blood runs cold as she hears the voice, the same voice she's been talking to all night. "This is Jane Doe," the recording says. "If anyone finds this, please help. Something's after me. I don't think I have much time left." The recording cuts off abruptly, leaving Mia staring at Jenkins in shock. Her mind reels, trying to reconcile the impossibility of what she's hearing. That's her," Mia whispers. "That's Jane. But how? She's been calling me all night. She's still on the line right now." Jenkins shakes his head, his skepticism evident. "Mia, this woman has been presumed dead for 2 years. There's no way she could be calling you. 2. But Mia knows what she's heard. She rushes back to her desk, her heart pounding. "Jane? Jane, are you still there?" There's a moment of static, and then Jane's voice comes through, weaker than ever. "Mia, I think I understand now. I don't think I'm alive anymore, but it's still coming for me. For us. You have to be careful, Mia. It's using me to get to you." The line goes dead, leaving Mia staring at her screen in horror. The implications of what she's just heard wash over her, leaving her cold and shaken. She turns to Jenkins, her eyes wide with fear and determination. "We need to figure out what's going on, because whatever has Jane, whatever was speaking to me tonight, I don't think it's done with us yet." As if in response to her words, the lights in the dispatch center flicker, and for a moment, Mia swears she can hear the faint sound of scratching coming from within the walls. The night shift is over, but Mia Collins knows that her ordeal is just beginning. Mia turns back to her computer, her mind racing. The dispatch center feels different now, charged with an energy she can't explain. She pulls up Jane's file, scanning through the details of the 2-year-old disappearance. "Jenkins," she calls, her voice tight. "Look at this." The officer leans over her shoulder, his brow furrowed. On the screen is a photo of Jane Doe taken just days before her disappearance. She's smiling, her eyes bright with life. But it's not her face that Mia's pointing at. "The necklace," Mia says, her finger hovering over the image. "Jane described it to me earlier, said it was a gift from her grandmother. How could I have known that if I wasn't really talking to her?" Jenkins shakes his head, his skepticism warring with the evidence before him. "I don't know, Mia. Maybe you saw the file before and forgot. Or maybe—" He trails off, unwilling to voice the impossible alternative. Mia understands his reluctance. She's struggling to believe it herself. "I need to figure this out," she says, determination hardening her voice. "Something happened to Jane, and now it's happening again. We can't just ignore this." Jenkins sighs, running a hand through his graying hair. "All right, Mia, I trust your instincts. But we need to do this by the book. No wild goose chases, no jumping to conclusions. Deal?" Mia nods, grateful for his support. "Deal. Where do we start?" "With the facts," Jenkins says. He pulls up a chair, settling in beside her. "Let's go through everything Jane told you. Every detail, no matter how small or strange." For the next hour, Mia recounts her conversation with Jane. She describes the changing rooms, the glowing symbols, the voices and scratching sounds. As she speaks, Jenkins takes notes, his pen flying across the page. "It doesn't make sense," he mutters, staring at his notepad. "These locations she described, they're all over the city. No one could move between them that quickly." Mia nods, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten in the thrill of piecing together the puzzle. And the symbols. I've never seen anything like them before, but Jane described them in such detail. She pulls up a search engine, typing in descriptions of the symbols Jane had mentioned. Most of the results are unrelated, but a few catch her eye. "Look at this," she says, pointing to an article about ancient protective sigils. "Some of these are similar to what Jane described, but why would they be appearing to her?" Jenkins leans in, his skepticism slowly giving way to curiosity. "And you said you saw one of these symbols on your computer screen?" Mia nods, a chill running down her spine at the memory. "Just for a second. I thought I was imagining things." "Maybe you were," Jenkins says, but his tone lacks conviction. "Or maybe—" He's interrupted by a sudden burst of static from Mia's headset. She jumps, her hand flying to her ear. "Jane!" she calls, hope and fear warring in her voice. "Jane, are you there?" But it's not Jane's voice that comes through the static. Instead, Mia hears a low, guttural sound, like stone grinding against stone. It lasts only a few seconds before cutting off abruptly. Mia and Jenkins exchange a look, both shaken by the eerie noise. "What was that?" Jenkins asks, his hand instinctively moving to his hip, where his service weapon rests. Mia shakes her head, her mouth dry. "I don't know, but I've got a feeling it's connected to whatever's happening to Jane." She turns back to her computer, fingers flying over the keyboard as she pulls up the call log. "There," she says, pointing to the screen. "The system registered that sound as a call, but there's no origin point. It's like it came from nowhere." Jenkins frowns, leaning in to look at the data. "That's impossible. Every call has to come from somewhere." "Unless," Mia says slowly, a terrible suspicion forming in her mind, "it's not coming from our world at all." The words hang in the air between them, heavy with implication. Jenkins opens his mouth, likely to argue, but he's cut off by another burst of static from Mia's headset. This time, it's Jane's voice that comes through, but it's different, distorted, as if she's speaking from a great distance or underwater. "Mia," Jane's voice crackles, "the symbols, they're a key, a way out, but it's coming. You have to. The transmission cuts off, leaving Mia and Jenkins staring at each other in stunned silence. "We need to figure out what these symbols mean," Mia says, breaking the silence. "If they're a key, maybe they can help us understand what's happening to Jane." Jenkins nods, his earlier skepticism forgotten in the face of the mounting evidence. I'll reach out to some contacts, see if anyone recognizes these sigils. You keep digging into Jane's disappearance. There has to be something we missed. As Jenkins stands to leave, Mia calls out to him. Be careful, okay? Whatever this is, I think it's dangerous. He gives her a reassuring nod before heading out, leaving Mia alone with her thoughts and the ever-present hum of the dispatch center's equipment. For the next few hours, Mia loses herself in research. She pores over Jane's case file, cross-referencing it with other disappearances in the area. She searches for any mention of the strange symbols or the eerie grinding noise she heard. As the first light of dawn begins to creep through the windows, Mia sits back, rubbing her tired eyes. She's made progress, but the pieces still don't quite fit together. There's something she's missing, some crucial detail that would make everything clear. She's about to call it a night when her computer screen flickers. For a moment, she thinks it's just her exhausted mind playing tricks on her. But then it happens again, and this time she sees it clearly. One of the symbols Jane described appears on her screen, glowing with an otherworldly light. It pulses once, twice, and then disappears, leaving Mia staring at her normal desktop. With shaking hands, she reaches for her phone to call Jenkins, but before she can dial, the screen of her phone lights up with an incoming call. The caller ID reads unknown, but Mia knows, with a certainty that chills her to her core, who it is. She answers, bringing the phone slowly to her ear. Jane! But the voice that responds isn't Jane's. It's low and gravelly, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. She was just the beginning, it growls. You're next, Mia Collins. The line goes dead, leaving Mia frozen in terror. She stares at her phone, her mind struggling to process what just happened. Slowly, she lowers the device, her gaze drawn to her computer screen. There, reflected in the dark surface of her monitor, she sees a figure standing behind her. It's tall and indistinct, more shadow than substance, with glowing eyes that seem to bore into her very soul. Mia whirls around, her heart pounding in her chest, but there's nothing there. The dispatch center is empty, the early morning sunlight streaming through the windows, making the shadows retreat. She turns back to her computer, half convinced she imagined the whole thing. But there, on her screen, is an audio file that wasn't there before. With trembling fingers, she clicks play. Jane's voice fills the room, but it's not the frightened, confused Jane from earlier. This Jane sounds calm, almost serene. Mia, she says, if you're hearing this, it means they've chosen you too. I'm so sorry. But remember the symbols, they're the key. Find them, understand them, and maybe you can stop this. Good luck, Mia, and whatever you do, don't let them... The recording cuts off abruptly, leaving Mia staring at her screen in shock. She replays it, trying to catch any detail she might have missed, but there's nothing more. As the implications of Jane's message sink in, Mia feels a resolve hardening within her. Whatever is happening, whatever took Jane and is now coming for her, she won't go down without a fight. She turns to her computer, determination blazing in her eyes. She has work to do. The symbols are the key, Jane said, and Mia intends to unlock their secrets, no matter the cost. As she begins her research anew, she doesn't notice the shadow that flickers at the edge of her vision, or the faint sound of scratching coming from within the walls of the dispatch center. The hunt is on, and Mia Collins is both the hunter and the hunted. The night shift is over, but Mia's ordeal is just beginning, and as the sun rises on a new day, she can't shake the feeling that time is running out. Not just for her, but for everyone. Chapter 2. Static and Shadows. The sun climbs higher in the sky, but Mia barely notices. Her world has narrowed to the glow of her computer screen and the relentless ticking of the clock. She should have gone home hours ago, should be sleeping off the night shift. Instead, she's diving deeper into the rabbit hole of Jane's impossible case. Her fingers fly across the keyboard, pulling up old reports, cross-referencing dates and locations. The dispatch center hums around her, the day shift settling in. A few colleagues cast curious glances her way, but Mia ignores them, lost in her search. Collins, the voice cuts through her concentration. You're still here? Mia looks up. blinking away the fog of exhaustion. Her supervisor, Denise, stands before her, concern etched on her face. "I'm onto something, Denise," Mia says, her voice hoarse from hours of disuse. "This case, the Jane Doe from 2 years ago, there's more to it." Denise's frown deepens. "Mia, that case is cold, and you're not a detective. You need to go home, get some rest." But Mia shakes her head, turning back to her screen. "You don't understand. She called me last night, Jane. And now something's coming after me, too." The words hang in the air, sounding even more unbelievable spoken aloud. Denise's expression shifts from concern to outright worry. "Mia," she says gently, "you've been working too hard. Why don't you take a few days off, clear your head?" Frustration bubbles up in Mia's chest. She opens her mouth to argue, to make Denise understand, when her computer screen flickers. For a split second, one of the symbols Jane described flashes across the monitor. Mia gasps, pointing. "Did you see that?" But Denise just shakes her head, her worry now tinged with exasperation. "See what, Mia? There's nothing there." Before Mia can respond, her phone buzzes. It's a text from Jenkins. "Found something. Meet me at the old library in an hour." "I have to go," Mia says, standing abruptly. "Jenkins and I, we're looking into something." Denise sighs, clearly torn between concern for Mia and frustration with her behavior. "Mia, I really think—" But Mia is already gathering her things, her mind racing ahead to what Jenkins might have discovered. "I'll be back for my shift tonight," she calls over her shoulder, leaving Denise staring after her in bewilderment. The drive to the library is a blur. Mia's exhaustion wars with her anticipation, adrenaline keeping her alert despite her body's protests. She pulls into the parking lot, the old building looming before her. Its Victorian architecture, once grand, now seems ominous in the harsh light of day. Jenkins is waiting for her at the entrance, his face grim. "Thanks for coming," he says, leading her inside. "I think I've found something, but, well, you need to see it for yourself." They make their way through the dusty stacks, the smell of old books heavy in the air. Jenkins leads her to a back room filled with archives and forgotten tomes. "I called in a favor with a friend at the university," Jenkins explains, pulling out a heavy, leather-bound volume. "She's an expert in ancient symbols and rituals. When I described what you saw, what Jane told you about, she pointed me to this." He opens the book, revealing pages filled with intricate diagrams and spidery text. Mia leans in, her heart racing as she recognizes some of the symbols from Jane's descriptions. "What is this?" she breathes, running a finger over the faded ink. Jenkins' voice is low, almost reverent. "It's a treatise on interdimensional travel, or at least that's what the translation says. Most scholars dismiss it as fiction, or the ravings of a madman. But after what you've told me—" He trails off, letting the implication hang in the air. Mia feels a chill run down her spine as she stares at the symbols. They seem to move on the page, shifting and changing when she's not looking directly at them. "The symbols Jane saw," Mia says slowly. "They're some kind of portal." Jenkins nods, his skepticism from earlier completely gone. "That's what it looks like. And there's more." He flips to another page, revealing a drawing of a monstrous figure, all shadow and glowing eyes. The book talks about entities that live between dimensions, things that feed on fear and chaos. Mia's blood runs cold as she remembers the shadowy figure she glimpsed in her monitor's reflection. "It's real," she whispers. "All of it. Jane, the symbols, the entity, it's all real." As if in response to her words, the lights in the archive room flicker. A cold draft sweeps through, rustling the pages of the open book, and from somewhere deep in the stacks, they hear a sound that freezes them both in place. The low, guttural grinding noise Mia heard over her headset. Jenkins' hand goes to his weapon, but Mia grabs his arm. "No," she hisses. "We need to get out of here, now." They hurry through the library, the grinding noise seeming to follow them. As they burst out into the sunlight, Mia could swear she sees a shadow move in the library's windows, watching them flee. Back in Jenkins' car, they sit in silence for a moment, both trying to process what just happened. Finally, Jenkins speaks, his voice shaky. "What do we do now?" Mia takes a deep breath, her mind racing. We need to figure out why it's fixated on me, and we need to find a way to stop it before it can fully cross over. Jenkins nods, starting the car. I'll keep digging, see what else I can find out about these entities. You should go home, try to get some rest before your shift tonight. But even as he says it, they both know sleep is unlikely to come for Mia, not with the weight of this knowledge pressing down on her. As Jenkins drops her off at her apartment, Mia feels a sense of dread settling in her stomach. She's no longer just a dispatcher, handling other people's emergencies. Now, she's at the center of something far bigger and more terrifying than she ever could have imagined. Inside her apartment, Mia goes through the motions of her usual post-shift routine. She showers, changes into comfortable clothes, even forces down a sandwich. But her mind is far from restful. She spreads her notes out on the kitchen table, along with printouts of the symbols from the library book. There has to be a pattern, some key to understanding what's happening and how to stop it. Hours pass and Mia falls into a fitful sleep at the table, her dreams filled with shifting shadows and Jane's desperate pleas for help. She's jolted awake by the ringing of her phone. Disoriented, she fumbles for it, her heart racing when she sees it's an unknown number. "Hello?" she answers, her voice thick with sleep. "Mia." It's Jane's voice, but different somehow. Calmer, almost peaceful. "I don't have much time, you need to be careful. It's using the dispatch center, using the calls to breach the barrier." "Jane!" Mia is fully awake now, scrambling for a pen. "What do you mean? How is it using the calls?" "The frequencies," Jane says, her voice starting to fade. "The symbols, they're not just a key, they're a map to—" The line goes dead, leaving Mia staring at her phone in frustration. She checks the call log, but there's no record of the call ever happening. Glancing at the clock, she realizes she needs to leave for her shift soon. As she gathers her things, a new determination settles over her. Tonight, she'll find answers. She has to. The dispatch center is quiet when Mia arrives, the night shift just settling in. She logs into her system, hyper-aware of every flash on her screen, every crackle of static in her headset. For the first few hours, everything is normal, routine calls, nothing out of the ordinary. But as the night wears on, Mia begins to notice something strange. The background noise on the calls, the static between transmissions, it's changing. There's a pattern to it, a rhythm she can't quite pin down. She's so focused on trying to decipher the sounds that she almost misses it when her screen flickers. But this time, it's not just a momentary glitch. The symbols appear, glowing and pulsing, seeming to reach out from the screen. Mia's breath catches in her throat. She glances around, but none of her colleagues seem to notice anything amiss. The symbols are meant for her alone. As she watches, transfixed, the symbols begin to shift and move, arranging themselves into a pattern she recognizes. It's a map of the city, but overlaid with lines of energy she's never seen before. And at the center of it all, pulsing with an otherworldly light, is the dispatch center. The realization hits Mia like a sharp jab to the chest. The entity isn't just using the calls to communicate, it's using the entire emergency response system, the very infrastructure of the city, to tear open a gateway between worlds. As if to confirm her fears, a call comes in, but it's not a normal emergency. The voice on the other end is distorted, inhuman, speaking in a language Mia doesn't understand, but somehow comprehends on a primal level. It's coming, and it's using her to do it. Mia's hands shake as she reaches for her phone to call Jenkins, but before she can dial, every screen in the dispatch center goes dark. The lights flicker and die, plunging the room into darkness. And in that darkness, Mia hears it, the grinding of stone on stone, the whisper of 1,000 voices, the scratching of claws trying to break through. The entity is here, and Mia Collins is the only thing standing between it and our world. As her colleagues panic around her, scrambling to restore power and understand what's happening, Mia stands perfectly still. She knows what she has to do. The symbols are the key, Jane had said, a map and a weapon. With trembling fingers, Mia begins to trace the symbols in the air, her movements guided by some instinct she doesn't understand. As she does, she feels a surge of energy coursing through her, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The grinding noise intensifies, the air growing thick and heavy. Mia can feel the entity's rage, its frustration at being thwarted. But she doesn't stop, she can't stop. As she traces the final symbol, a blinding light erupts from her fingertips. The darkness recoils, the grinding replaced by an unearthly shriek of pain and fury. And then, as suddenly as it began, it's over. The lights flicker back to life, the screens rebooting as if nothing had happened. Mia stands in the center of the dispatch room, her colleagues staring at her in shock and confusion. She knows she should explain, should try to make them understand, but the words stick in her throat. How can she possibly describe what just happened? As the night wears on, Mia can feel the weight of her colleagues' stares, hear the whispers behind her back. They think she's losing it, cracking under the pressure of the job. And maybe they're right. Maybe she is going mad, but she knows what she saw, what she felt. The entity is real and it's not done with her yet. It will be back, stronger and more determined than ever. As her shift comes to an end, Mia gathers her things, her mind racing. She needs to find a way to stop this for good, to close the gateway and banish the entity back to whatever dark dimension it came from. She steps out of the dispatch center, the early morning sun casting long shadows across the parking lot. And as she walks to her car, she can't shake the feeling that she's being watched, that something is following her, waiting for the right moment to strike. Mia Collins has won this battle. But the war is far from over. And as she drives home, exhaustion and fear warring within her, she knows that the real fight is just beginning. The dispatch center may be quiet now, but the voice on the line is still there waiting. And next time, Mia may not be strong enough to resist its call. Chapter 3. Battle at the Breach. Mia stares at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back at her. Dark circles ring her eyes, a testament to nights of fitful sleep plagued by nightmares of shifting shadows and whispered threats. Her hair, usually neatly tied back, hangs limp around her face. She splashes cold water on her face, trying to shake off the fog of exhaustion. As she reaches for a towel, her phone buzzes on the counter. It's a text from Jenkins. "You okay? Heard about last night. We need to talk." Mia's fingers hover over the keys, unsure how to respond. How can she explain what happened in the dispatch center? The symbols, the darkness, the entity's near breakthrough? She settles for a simple reply. "Meet me at the diner in 30. The drive to the diner is tense, every shadow on the street seeming to reach for her car. Mia's knuckles are white on the steering wheel, her eyes constantly darting to the rearview mirror. She can't shake the feeling that she's being watched, followed. Jenkins is already at a booth when she arrives, 2 steaming cups of coffee in front of him. His face is grim as she slides in across from him. "You look like hell, Collins," he says by way of greeting. Mia manages a weak smile. Feel like it too. She wraps her hands around the warm mug, drawing comfort from its solidity. "Thanks for meeting me." Jenkins leans forward, his voice low. "What happened last night? I got calls from 3 different people at the center, all saying you had some kind of episode." Mia takes a deep breath, then launches into her story. She tells him about the symbols on her screen, the map of the city's energy lines, the darkness that engulfed the dispatch center. As she speaks, she can see the doubt creeping into Jenkins' eyes. "I know how it sounds," she finishes, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I swear, Jenkins, it was real. The entity, it almost broke through. And somehow I stopped it." Jenkins is quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Finally, he sighs. "Mia, I want to believe you. After everything we've seen, everything we've learned about Jane's case, but this is big. Too big for just us to handle." "What are you saying?" Mia asks, a knot forming in her stomach. "I'm saying maybe we need to bring in more people. The department, the FBI, someone who can—" "No!" Mia cuts him off, perhaps too forcefully. She lowers her voice, aware of the other diners glancing their way. "We can't. They'll never believe us. And even if they did, it would take too long. The entity is getting stronger. We don't have time." Jenkins runs a hand through his hair, frustration evident on his face. Then what do you suggest? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're running yourself into the ground chasing shadows. Mia is about to respond when her phone buzzes. She glances down, her blood running cold at the message on the screen. Help me, it's coming. The sender is listed as unknown, but Mia knows. It's Jane. She shows the phone to Jenkins, whose skepticism visibly wavers. This is happening now, Mia says, her voice urgent. We need to get to the dispatch center. I think I know how to stop it. Jenkins hesitates for just a moment before nodding. All right, Collins. Lead the way. The drive to the dispatch center is tense, the air heavy with unspoken fears. As they pull into the parking lot, Mia's phone buzzes again. Another message from Jane. The symbols are the key, find the frequency. What does that mean? Jenkins asks as they hurry towards the building. Mia shakes her head, her mind racing. I'm not sure, but I have an idea. They burst into the dispatch center, startling the day shift workers. Mia ignores their confused looks, making a beeline for her workstation. She logs in, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she pulls up the system's advanced settings. There, she mutters, more to herself than to Jenkins. The frequency modulation system. It's experimental, designed to block unwanted signals, but maybe... She trails off, her focus entirely on the screen. As Jenkins watches, baffled, Mia begins inputting a complex series of commands, guided by an instinct she doesn't fully understand. Suddenly, the lights flicker. A cold wind sweeps through the room despite the sealed windows. And from every speaker, every headset, comes a sound that chills Mia to her core. The grinding of stone on stone, punctuated by a chorus of whispering voices. It's here, Mia breathes, her fingers never stopping their frantic dance across the keyboard. Jenkins, watch the doors, don't let anyone in or out. To his credit, Jenkins doesn't hesitate. He positions himself by the main entrance, one hand on his weapon, his eyes scanning the room for any sign of the supernatural threat. The other dispatchers are in various states of panic, some frozen at their stations, others making for the exits only to be stopped by Jenkins. Mia wants to explain, to tell them what's happening, but there's no time. She can feel the entity pressing against the veil between worlds, searching for a way through. As Mia works, the paranormal activity intensifies. Computer screens flicker with strange symbols. Shadows seem to move of their own accord, and the temperature in the room plummets. She can hear her colleagues' panicked whispers, feel their fear adding fuel to the entity's strength. Come on, Mia mutters, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cold. She's close, she can feel it. The frequency modulation system is responding, creating a barrier of sorts. But it's not enough, the entity is too strong, its hunger too great. And then, cutting through the chaos, Mia hears a voice. Jane's voice, but not coming from her phone or any speaker. It seems to be coming from inside her own head. Mia, Jane's voice whispers, it's not just the frequency, it's you, your fear, your determination. The entity feeds on it, but it can also be used against it. You have to face it, Mia, embrace your fear and turn it into a weapon. Mia's hands pause over the keyboard as the words sink in. She closes her eyes, taking a deep breath. She can feel the entity's presence, a malevolent force pressing against her mind. For a moment, terror threatens to overwhelm her. But then, she thinks of Jane, trapped for 2 years in a nightmare. She thinks of her colleagues, of Jenkins, of all the people who could be hurt if the entity breaks through. She opens her eyes, a new resolve hardening within her. All right, she says to the empty air. You want my fear? Come and get it. Mia stands, stepping away from her workstation. The dispatch center seems to fade away, leaving her in a space between worlds. Shadows swirl around her, taking on half-formed shapes that disappear when she tries to focus on them. And there, in the center of it all, is the entity. It's a writhing mass of darkness with eyes that glow like dying stars. Mia can feel its hunger, its all-consuming desire to break through into her world. You can't have them, Mia says, her voice stronger than she feels. "You can't have our world. I won't let you." The entity responds not with words but with a wave of terror that threatens to drive Mia to her knees. She sees visions of her worst fears: the dispatch center in ruins, her colleagues dead or worse, the entire city consumed by shadows. But Mia stands her ground. She lets the fear wash over her, through her, and then she pushes back. She thinks of every call she's ever taken, every life she's helped save. She thinks of the strength it takes to face darkness day after day and still show up for the next shift. "I'm not afraid of you," Mia says, and she's surprised to find it's true. "I see you for what you are. You're nothing but a parasite, feeding off the fear of others because you have no power of your own." The entity roars, a sound that shakes Mia to her very core, but she doesn't flinch. Instead, she reaches out with her mind, grasping the threads of the frequency modulation system. She can feel it responding to her will, creating a barrier between worlds. "You want my fear?" Mia shouts over the entity's roar. "Here, take it all." She opens herself up, channeling every scrap of fear, every moment of doubt and terror she's experienced since this all began. But instead of letting the entity feed on it, she turns it into a weapon. The fear flows through her, amplified by the frequency modulation system, and slams into the entity like a tidal wave. The creature writhes, its form destabilizing under the assault. Mia presses her advantage, pushing harder, drawing on reserves of strength she didn't know she had. She can feel the barrier between worlds solidifying, pushing the entity back. With a final earth-shattering shriek, the entity is forced back. The shadows recede, the grinding noise fades, and Mia finds herself back in the dispatch center, gasping for breath. The room is silent, every eye fixed on her. Jenkins is at her side in an instant, supporting her as her knees threaten to give way. "Mia," he asks, his voice filled with concern and awe, "what the hell just happened?" Mia manages a weak smile. I think I won." As if to confirm her words, every computer in the dispatch center comes to life. On each screen is a single message: "Thank you, Jay." The silence is broken by a burst of nervous laughter, then questions start flying. Mia's colleagues crowd around her, demanding explanations, expressing concern, offering congratulations for, well, they're not quite sure what, but they know Mia just did something extraordinary. As the adrenaline fades, exhaustion lands like a crushing weight. She sways on her feet, and Jenkins tightens his grip on her arm. "All right, show's over," he announces to the room. "Collins needs rest. We'll explain everything later." As Jenkins leads her out of the dispatch center, Mia can't shake the feeling that it's not over. The entity is contained, pushed back to its own dimension but not destroyed, and as long as it exists, there's a chance it could find another way through. In the parking lot, Jenkins helps Mia into his car. "I'm taking you home," he says, his tone brooking no argument. "You need to sleep. We'll figure out our next move after you've rested." Mia nods, too tired to argue. As they drive, she stares out the window, watching the city pass by. It all looks so normal, so untouched by the cosmic horror they've just faced. How many people, she wonders, are going about their day, blissfully unaware of how close they came to annihilation? At her apartment, Jenkins helps her inside. "I'll be right outside if you need anything," he says. "Try to get some sleep, okay?" Mia manages a nod before collapsing onto her bed, still fully clothed. She's asleep almost instantly, her exhausted mind finally shutting down. But her sleep is far from peaceful. In her dreams, she's back in that in-between place, facing the entity again. But this time, something's different. The entity isn't trying to break through. Instead, it's speaking to her, its voice a cacophony of whispers. "You've won a battle, Mia Collins," it says, "but the war is far from over. We are eternal, endless, and we will find a way through. Perhaps not today, perhaps not tomorrow, but someday when you least expect it, we will return, and next time, you won't be strong enough to stop us." Mia wakes with a gasp, her heart pounding. The dream fades quickly, leaving her with only a vague sense of unease. She glances at her clock, surprised to see that several hours have passed. As she sits up trying to shake off the lingering effects of the dream, her phone buzzes. It's a text from Jenkins. "Hope you're feeling better. We need to talk about what happened. Meet me at the station when you're up for it." Mia stares at the message, a sense of dread settling in her stomach. She knows Jenkins is right. They need to figure out their next move, need to make sure the entity can't find another way through. But a part of her, a part she's ashamed to admit exists, just wants to run, to pack a bag and drive until the dispatch center, Jane and the entity are nothing but a distant memory. But she knows she can't. Whatever happened in the dispatch center, whatever she did to push the entity back, it's clear that she's now a key player in this cosmic game. She can't walk away, not when the stakes are so high. With a sigh, Mia forces herself out of bed. She showers and changes, trying to wash away the lingering fear from her dream. As she's about to leave, she catches sight of herself in the mirror. She looks different somehow, older perhaps, or just more aware. The woman who stares back at her has seen things no human was meant to see, has fought battles on a scale few could comprehend. Mia takes a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "Round one goes to us," she says to her reflection. "Let's see if we can win the fight." As she steps out of her apartment, ready to face whatever comes next, Mia can't shake the feeling that this is just the beginning. The entity may be contained for now, but the voice on the line is still out there waiting. And next time, it may not be so easy. To silence. Chapter 4. Aftershocks. The police station hums with activity as Mia pushes through the double doors. Officers and clerks bustle about, their voices a constant murmur in the background. To Mia, it all seems surreal, almost dreamlike. How can the world just go on as if nothing happened, as if reality itself hadn't been on the brink of collapse mere hours ago? She spots Jenkins at his desk, hunched over a stack of papers. He looks up as she approaches, the dark circles under his eyes mirroring her own. "Collins," he says, standing to greet her. "How are you holding up?" Mia manages a weak smile. "I'm vertical, that's something, right?" Jenkins nods, understanding in his eyes. He gestures to an empty interrogation room. "Let's talk privately." Once inside, with the door firmly shut, Jenkins turns to Mia. "I've been trying to write up a report on what happened, but every time I start, I realize how insane it all sounds." Mia sinks into a chair, suddenly feeling the weight of everything that's happened. "Tell me about it. I lived through it, and I'm still not sure I believe it." Jenkins sits across from her, his face serious. "We need to figure out our next move, Mia. What you did at the dispatch center. It was incredible. But it's also raised a lot of questions. People are talking." A knot forms in Mia's stomach. "What kind of questions?" "The kind that could get us both sent for psych evaluations if we're not careful," Jenkins says grimly. "I've managed to keep a lid on things for now, but we need a plan." Mia leans forward, her voice low. "We can't tell them the truth, Jenkins. They'd never believe us, and even if they did, what then? We'd be locked up faster than you can say interdimensional entity." Jenkins nods, running a hand through his hair. "I know, but we can't just pretend nothing happened either. The entire dispatch center they saw something, and they're going to want answers." Mia is quiet for a moment, her mind racing. Finally she speaks. What if we tell them it was a test, some new emergency response protocol we were trying out?" Jenkins raises an eyebrow. "You think they'll buy that?" "They'll want to," Mia says. "It's a lot easier to believe in a surprise drill than in a supernatural invasion. We can say it was classified, that we couldn't warn anyone beforehand. It might just be crazy enough to work." Jenkins considers this, then slowly nods. "It could work, but Mia, what about the entity? What if it comes back?" The question hangs in the air between them, heavy with implications. Mia thinks of her dream, of the entity's warning. She suppresses a shudder. "I don't know," she admits, "but I think we bought ourselves some time. The frequency modulation system combined with what I did, it pushed the entity back, hard. It'll take time for it to recover, to find another way through." Jenkins leans back in his chair, studying Mia's face. "And what about you? Are you okay, Mia? Really okay? The question catches her off guard. For a moment, the facade of calm she's been maintaining cracks. I don't know, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. I feel changed. Like I've seen something I can't unsee. And I'm scared, Jenkins, scared of what might come next. Jenkins reaches across the table, squeezing her hand. You're not alone in this, Collins. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. Mia nods, grateful for his support. So what now? Now, Jenkins says, standing up, we go sell our story, and then we prepare, because something tells me this isn't over. The next few hours are a blur of meetings and carefully crafted half-truths. Mia and Jenkins spin their tale of a classified emergency response drill, apologizing for the alarm it caused while praising the staff's reactions. To their relief, most seem eager to accept this explanation, preferring it to the inexplicable reality of what actually occurred. By the time Mia leaves the station, the sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She's exhausted, both physically and mentally, but there's a sense of accomplishment. They've contained the situation, at least for now. As she drives home, Mia allows herself to hope. Maybe it really is over. Maybe the entity, pushed back by her actions, will remain trapped in its own dimension. Maybe she can go back to her normal life, to being just another dispatcher handling everyday emergencies. But as she pulls into her apartment complex, that hope is shattered. Her phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. It's not over, Mia. It's never over. Mia's hands shake as she stares at the message. Is it Jane, the entity? Or is her mind finally cracking under the strain of everything that's happened? She practically runs to her apartment, locking the door behind her and leaning against it, her heart pounding. The silence of her home, once comforting, now feels oppressive. She can almost hear whispers in the quiet, feel eyes watching her from the shadows. Mia shakes her head, trying to clear away the paranoia. She's safe. The entity is gone. She repeats these thoughts like a mantra as she goes through her evening routine, desperate for some semblance of normalcy. But as she settles into bed, exhaustion finally overtaking her fear, Mia can't shake the feeling that this is just the calm before the storm. That somewhere, in the spaces between worlds, something is watching, waiting, planning its return. She drifts off into an uneasy sleep. Her dreams a chaotic mix of symbols, shadowy figures, and Jane's desperate pleas for help. Mia wakes with a start, her alarm blaring. For a moment she's disoriented, the memories of the past few days mixing with her dreams. But then reality settles in, and with it a sense of dread. It's time for her first shift back at the dispatch center since the incident. As she dresses, Mia tries to psych herself up. It's just another day, she tells herself. Just another shift. But she can't quite believe it. The drive to work is tense, every shadow on the street seeming to reach for her car. Mia's knuckles are white on the steering wheel, her eyes constantly darting to the rearview mirror. She half expects to see a monstrous shape following her, but there's nothing out of the ordinary. The dispatch center looks the same as always, but to Mia it feels different. Charged somehow, as if the very air is humming with residual energy from their confrontation with the entity. She takes a deep breath before pushing through the doors. Her colleagues greet her with a mix of concern and curiosity. News of the classified drill has spread, but Mia can see the questions in their eyes. They know something more happened, even if they can't quite put their finger on what. Mia settles into her workstation, the familiar routine both comforting and unsettling. As she logs into the system, she half expects to see strange symbols flashing across her screen. But everything is normal, just another day at the dispatch center. The first few hours of her shift pass without incident. Routine calls, nothing out of the ordinary. Mia begins to relax, to think that maybe, just maybe, things really can go back to normal. But then, just as she's about to take her break, a call comes in that makes her blood run cold. 911, what's your emergency? Mia says, the words automatic. There's silence on the other end, then a sound that makes Mia's heart skip a beat. It's the grinding noise, the sound of stone on stone that she associates with the entity, and underneath it, almost too quiet to hear. A desperate voice. Mia. Please help me. Mia recognizes the voice. It's Jane's voice. Mia's fingers fly across the keyboard, trying to trace the call to find its origin. But just like before, the system shows no location, no point of origin. It's as if the call is coming from nowhere, or from everywhere. Jane, Mia says, her voice barely above a whisper. Jane, is that you? The grinding noise grows louder, drowning out any response Jane might have made. And then, cutting through the noise, another voice speaks. It's not Jane this time. It's deep, resonant, and filled with a malevolence that makes Mia's skin crawl. Did you think it was over, Mia Collins? The voice says. Did you think you could push us back so easily? We are eternal, we are patient, and we are coming. The line goes dead, leaving Mia staring at her screen in horror. She looks around wildly, expecting to see her colleagues reacting to the otherworldly voice. But everyone is going about their business as usual. The message was for her alone. Mia's hand tremors as she reaches for her phone to call Jenkins. But before she can dial, every screen in the dispatch center flickers. For a split second, the strange symbols appear, glowing with an eerie light. And then they're gone, leaving Mia to wonder if she imagined the whole thing. She excuses herself, practically running to the bathroom. Once inside, she leans against the sink, trying to calm her racing heart. The fluorescent lights flicker overhead, and Mia could swear she sees shadows moving in the mirror, just at the edge of her vision. Get it together, Collins, she mutters to herself. You beat it once, you can do it again. But even as she says the words, doubt gnaws at her. The entity is back, or maybe it never truly left. And this time it seems stronger, more focused, more determined to break through. Mia splashes water on her face, the cold shock helping to clear her head. She needs a plan. She can't just react this time. She needs to be proactive. But how do you fight something that exists between dimensions? How do you stop a force that seems to feed on fear itself? As she dries her face, an idea begins to form. The frequency modulation system had worked before, pushing the entity back. Maybe with some modifications, it could be used to create a more permanent barrier, a way to seal off the weaknesses in reality that the entity was exploiting. It's a long shot, Mia knows, but it's all she has. She returns to her workstation, her thoughts tumbling over one another. She needs to contact Jenkins to start putting her plan into action, but she has to be careful. The entity is watching, listening. One wrong move and it could all fall apart. As Mia settles back into her chair, she feels a change in the air. The hum of the dispatch center seems to fade away, leaving her in a bubble of eerie silence. She looks around, but everything appears normal. Her colleagues continue their work, oblivious to the strange atmosphere surrounding Mia, and then she hears it, a whisper so faint she almost misses it. Mia! She freezes, her hand hovering over her keyboard. Mia, you have to finish what you started. It's Jane's voice, but different somehow, stronger, more focused. The symbols, Mia, they're not just a key, they're a map to sealing the rifts permanently. Mia's heart races. She wants to respond, to ask Jane how she knows this, how she's communicating. But she doesn't dare speak aloud, not with the entity potentially listening. As if reading her thoughts, Jane's voice continues. I don't have much time. The entity, it's distracted, focused on breaking through. This might be our only chance. You need to use the frequency modulation system, but not just to push the entity back. You need to seal the rifts, all of them. Mia's mind reels with the implications. Seal all the rifts, is that even possible? How, she thinks, hoping somehow Jane will hear her. The symbols are the key, Jane's voice whispers. Use them to guide the frequencies. It will be dangerous, Mia. The entity will fight back. But it's the only way to end this for good. The whisper fades, leaving Mia alone with her racing thoughts. She knows what she has to do, but the task seems impossible. How can she modify the frequency modulation system without alerting her colleagues? How can she input the symbols without the entity noticing? And then, as if in answer to her unspoken questions, her computer screen flickers. For a brief moment, A complex series of symbols appears, along with what looks like instructions for modifying the frequency modulation system. Mia's fingers fly across the keyboard, inputting the information as quickly as she can. She can feel a pressure building in the air around her, as if the very fabric of reality is straining. As she works, the paranormal activity intensifies. The lights in the dispatch center flicker wildly, shadows seem to move of their own accord, and a cold wind sweeps through the room despite the sealed windows. Her colleagues begin to notice, casting worried glances her way. Mia knows she's running out of time. She has to complete the modifications before someone stops her, before the entity realizes what she's doing. With a final keystroke, Mia activates the modified system. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, with a sound like reality itself tearing, a shockwave of energy pulses out from her workstation. The dispatch center is plunged into chaos. Computer screens explode in showers of sparks, the lights go out, and a howling wind tears through the room. And above it all, Mia hears the entity's roar of fury and pain. She stands, facing the swirling vortex of darkness that has formed in the center of the room. Her colleagues cower in fear, but Mia stands tall. She can feel the power of the symbols flowing through her, guiding her actions. "It's over," she shouts into the maelstrom. "You have no place here, no way in. We're sealing the rifts, all of them. You'll never break through again." The entity's form becomes more solid, a writhing mass of shadows, with eyes that burn like dying stars. It reaches for Mia, its fury palpable. But Mia doesn't flinch. She raises her hands, tracing the symbols in the air. As she does, beams of light shoot from her fingertips, forming a complex web that surrounds the entity. The creature shrieks, a sound that threatens to shatter Mia's eardrums. But she doesn't stop. She can feel the rifts closing, reality knitting itself back together. With a final earth-shattering roar, the entity is forced back. The vortex collapses in on itself, taking the creature with it. And then there was silence. Mia stands in the center of the destroyed dispatch center, gasping for breath. Her colleagues stare at her in awe and fear. She knows she should explain, should try to make them understand, but the words stick in her throat. As the emergency lights flicker on, Mia hears a voice. Not Jane's this time, and not the entity's. It's a chorus of voices speaking as one. "Well done, Mia Collins," they say. "The rifts are sealed, the entity contained. But remember, there are more things in the universe than you can imagine. Stay vigilant, stay strong, for you are now a guardian of the veil between worlds." The voices fade, leaving Mia alone with the aftermath of what she's done. She looks around at her shocked colleagues, at the destruction surrounding her. She knows her life will never be the same. But she also knows that she's done something extraordinary, something that has saved not just her world, but perhaps all worlds. As sirens approach in the distance, Mia takes a deep breath. She's exhausted, drained in a way she's never experienced before. But there's also a sense of accomplishment, of purpose. Jenkins bursts through the door, his eyes wide as he takes in the scene. "Mia, what happened? Are you okay?" Mia manages a weak smile. "It's over, Jenkins. Really over this time, but I think we're going to need a new dispatch center." As she lets Jenkins lead her out of the building, Mia can't help but wonder what comes next. She's seen things no human was meant to see, fought battles on a cosmic scale. How does she go back to a normal life after that? But then she remembers the voices, their warning to stay vigilant, and she realizes that her life will never truly be normal again. She's a guardian now, a protector of the veil between worlds. As she steps out into the sunlight, Mia feels a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The voice on the line may be silent for now, but she knows that somewhere out there, other threats may be waiting. She takes a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. Whatever comes next, she'll be ready. For now, though, she allows herself a small smile. She's earned a moment of peace. "Maybe I need a vacation," she mutters to herself, then chuckles softly. As she walks away from the dispatch center, Mia knows that while this chapter of her life has closed, A new one is just beginning, and whatever it brings, she'll face it head on, just as she always has.